Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good.
Yeah, you all can hear me, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can see the
okay,
screen and voice is clear.
right, okay, thank you. Okay, last week, last session, we have completed that supplier purchase order. Today, we will do balance supply transactions, and you all could download that Microsoft.net.
Yeah, I did it.
Okay, and also
And
we have shared that folder. If you want, you can download from the. You can go to that message, and yeah, we have uploaded that Microsoft.net. From there, you can download. Uh, haven't download? Please message. We will assist you. Okay. Last session we completed that supplier purchase orders. You can enter supplier purchase orders from suppliers, transactions, and supplier purchase orders, and click on add purchase order. From here, in supplier drop down box, you can select the supplier, and you can enter items. You can select the items and enter quantity. And save the purchase order. Now today we will do uh, supplier invoices. There are two options. First one is if you have the list that purchase orders uh, that after actually supplier invoices use as GRN, good received note. After you enter the supplier invoice, it will update the inventory and supplier. Uh, Journal entries are debit inventory and credit suppliers, state payables. Okay. Now, first method is we can go to suppliers, transactions, and supplier invoices. At supplier invoice. From supplier drop down box, we can select the supplier. And you can enter the supplier invoice number. Then you can select that title. Then enter the quantity and the price. And you can save the supplier invoice. Okay, this way you can do, and also you can do this way also. Now, if you haven't sent any purchase orders, you can directly enter supplier invoice. This method. Select the supplier and select items and enter quantity and prices. Save. Now you have already sent a purchase order to the supplier. Now send the goods. In that case, we already entered the supplier purchase order in the system. So we can recall that supplier purchase and directly we can complete the transaction. After you select the supplier, from you can see this from purchase order. There's a purchase order. You can select that one, then system will ask you want to link the purchase order. If you click OK, it will display that, it will pop up that items, and the purchase order items will populate to the supplier invoice. So that case, you don't want to enter that items quantities again. You can directly select the purchase order and populate the items to the supplier invoice. Okay. If there are any changes, you can edit from here. Quantity or price, you can change from here. And it is compulsory to enter supplier invoice number. Otherwise, you cannot save that supplier invoice. Okay. In addition to that, if the supplier purchase order has changed, or they have sent additional items to you, you can enter it the last line, or if you add more lines, and you can enter that additional item. Okay. After that, you can save the supplier invoice. Okay. I'll repeat it again. Now we are going to enter supplier in. First, go to suppliers, then transactions, select supplier invoice, click on add supplier invoice, select the supplier from the drop down box. From here, item list, you can select items. Enter the quantity and price. And also you need to enter the supplier invoice number. And you can save the supplier invoice. This is for direct supplier invoice entering method. And assume you already have sent a supplier purchase order, and now supplier has sent goods to you. In that case, we already entered that supplier purchase order. Now we can. Mr. Saman, any questions?
No.
Okay. Now we can convert that purchase order to an invoice. We can select that purchase order, click OK. Then that purchase order item will populate to the supplier invoice. If you need any changes, you can do changes, quantity, and save the supplier invoice. When you are entering supplier invoice, compulsory to enter supplier invoice number. Otherwise, you cannot save the supplier invoice. After that, you can save the supplier invoice. When you are entering the supplier invoice, it will update your inventory, debit your inventory value, and credit supplier trade payables. Okay. Okay. Now you can practice on entering two transactions. If you have any questions, you can ask. You can see that. Is it clear now?
Yeah, now it is clear.
Okay. You can see that
Some noise is coming. I think someone is not muted the mic
okay.
capacity.
Right. Okay. Fine. Thanks. Now you can see that uh, your supplier purchase orders that purchase order status has changed to in. Okay, and is it that status not available in your grid? You can add it from that. Click on the settings button and click on customize grid, and you can add that. Selecting this status, click on this status. You can add that status column. Okay, now okay, again we have changed the login. You can see that the status has changed, and that status has changed to invoice. Now, first method is we can go to in suppliers transaction and select supplier invoice and enter the supplier invoice, or else you can go to purchase orders, suppliers transaction, supplier purchase. From here, you can select that invoice, that purchase order, and click on actions and create the invoice. Okay, then the system that supplier name and inventory items, and that dates, everything it will fill, and you need to enter only that supplier invoice number. And you can save the supplier invoice. Okay, this way also you can enter supplier invoice. Okay, you can try this method also. Okay, there are two methods to enter supplier invoices. First method is go to suppliers, transactions, supplier invoices. Click on add supplier invoice. Select the supplier name. This method you can use for enter GRN or supplier invoice without entering purchase orders. Okay, enter supplier invoice number and select items. Enter quantity and prices, and you can save the invoice. The second method is you can go to suppliers, transactions, supplier purchase orders. And select the purchase order. Click on create invoice. Then system will ask you want to change the purchase order to invoice. Click on yes. System will fill all details, that suppliers, items, and prices. You can enter the supplier invoice number and supplier invoice. Okay, this way you can enter. And also sometimes you might see now after you enter some transaction, when you are entering the second transaction, it will automatically update that exclusive price. When you are entering a supplier invoice, it will update the price as according to last transaction. Okay, if you purchase item for now, this supply invoice item inclusive price is 100. This transaction last time we purchased also 100. Because of that, for new transaction it will show that 100 last invoice price. If you want, you can change or you can continue with the okay. I'll add little more to this supply invoice. Now assume you have additional cost such as insurance, traveling, transport, and clearing expenses. Like those additional costs may be involved in this supplier invoice. That case, you can add those additional costs also to these items. Okay, for that you can click on this add additional cost. Click on that and select the supplier. For an example, we might have a transporter. We can enter that description and enter supply that transport invoice number and enter the amount. After you enter that additional cost in the supplier invoice, there may be another column, add cost, additional cost. It will update. Okay, it will add to the that particular items inventory value. Okay, if you have more expenses, you can add by clicking this green color plus mark and add those expenses to that items. If you have two items here, two line items, it will proportionately allocate that additional to these items. Okay, according to rupee value, this additional cost will change. If you are doing in import business, the additional cost for that clearance and transport, insurance, those things, you can use this additional cost for item costing. Okay, after you enter that, you can save. Okay, you can enter another transaction, another supply invoice by adding this additional cost. Hello, can you all hear now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, Vasanta is, yeah, okay, right. Okay, now after you can see that supplier invoice list, uh, this first one, that is additional cost invoice, doesn't have any boxes. Other all invoices has boxes. From that, you can identify that additional cost invoices and uh, GRN, purchase orders. Sorry, I mean supplier invoices. Okay. And also after you enter that additional cost, you cannot change that. It will not update that item cost. Okay, so before enter the additional cost, simply check that costing, and after that enter. Okay, okay, and right. Uh, in that supplier invoice, you can see this outlet, branch, group kind of columns available. Sometimes in your layout screen it will not show. Okay, that is for now. If you all have project or branch or any cost centers, you can add those cost centers or branch to the system. And if you have any projects or branches, you can get your PNL project wise or branch wise. In that case, we can use this outlet or branch or group. Was fee from company, analysis code, and from here uh, you can add you can use this addition analysis code for. Now first one we have shown entered as outlet. If you have cost centers, you can use that analysis code, this cost center. Okay, likewise you can use 3 levels of analysis code. Now if you have projects or branch or group, you can use for these analysis codes for that that purpose. Okay, now we rename cost, first analysis code as cost centers. You can add any number of cost centers after this analysis categories for cost centers. Okay, here you can add any number of projects or cost centers to the system. Okay, I'll show you how to generate that profit and loss account. Go to reports, financial statements, profit and loss. Here select the period and click on analysis code. From here select if you want to get cost center, select cost. Okay, now you can generate your profit and loss report, that cost center wise. Okay, we will discuss that analysis code
when you are doing analysis code. Now just show, because you might have question, because your screen this cost center is not available, and because of that I'll explain that. Now assume you might have that foreign suppliers. When you are importing from overseas, uh, foreign currency valued supplier invoices. In that case, we can select that foreign supply. All the values will show in that according to that supplier's currency. Okay, and here uh, here that all balances and values will show in this foreign currency amounts. You can enter those values in foreign currency amount, and you can enter that exchange rate also. Now here that we are using this supplier use AED, and automatically this will update. If you want, you can change the exchange rate also. From here you can change by clicking change rate. You can change the foreign currency exchange rate. For those expenses, that GRN also we can add additional cost. Okay, if you have already created any foreign currency suppliers, you can add and check that foreign currency, how it the transaction happen. Okay, is it clear for everyone? Okay. Okay. And we will move to supplier returns. Before that, I'll go through again. Now you can enter supplier invoice from this transaction, supplier invoice, and click add supplier invoice, or else you can go to suppliers, transaction, supplier purchase orders. You can select the purchase order and you can click actions and click on create invoice. Then it will change the purchase order to supplier invoice. And also, if you have any additional costs such as transports, clearance, insurance, those expenses, you can add those additional costs to the items by clicking this additional cost. Okay. And if you have foreign suppliers or to the system, in that case you can change that exchange rate from this exchange rate box. Okay, now we will move to supplier
Mr.
returns.
Channa, excuse me. Mr. Channa,
Yeah, Mr.
excuse me. Yeah, in this purchase order
Yes.
option, in the actions in our system, those that convert into invoice is not available. Only preview, print, and email is available.
Can you please share your screen?
Can you see the screen?
Okay. Is it only how about others, Miss Anusha?
In my case, I have create invoice.
You have. Okay. Okay, Mr. Saman, can you please go to this administration and control user access? And select your click on permissions. Go to click on suppliers. Click on supplier invoice. It is all ticked, right? Right. Okay. Okay. Any other without that convert to invoice?
Yeah, mine
Login.
also shown.
Not shown.
Yeah, not shown.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. We can continue now. But from other option, I can put the
we will check.
invoices.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's available, Chan. Maybe
It's
someone, I
hiding.
don't know, check in the supply invoice. There don't. I really previously I just checked the supply invoice. The purchase order is there to create the invoice. Yes.
Mr. Saman, go to please go to this suppliers transactions, supplier purchase orders.
Right. Now it is
Okay. Maybe actually
yeah, now
some
it is
saying like that. Maybe earlier we checked it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. Right.
Fine,
Now.
thank you.
Okay. Now we will move to returns. Okay. For enter supplier returns, go to sub transactions, supplier returns. Okay. From here, now assume some items you ordered or you received has damage. Because of that, we are returning those items to the supplier. So in that case, we need to enter supplier return. For enter supplier return, go to suppliers, transactions, supplier returns, and add supplier return. From here, you can select the supplier and select the items you are going to return. Price will come to from the last cost. And you can save that supplier return. Okay, and if you have this way also you can enter the supplier return, or else you can select the supplier invoice from the list, this from invoice list, and you can select that supplier invoice, and after that that particular invoices item will populate to the okay. Now this supplier return has 3 items. If you want to change the supplier return, you can change from here. If you want to delete items, you can delete items from clicking this red color button, or else, and also you can change the return quantity from this quantity column. Now this one has originally has 100 quantity. Now if you want to return only 10, you can enter that 10 here. Okay. When you are entering supplier return, journal entries will be debit, trade payables, and credit inventory. Okay, like this, you can enter supplier returns. And also from the supplier list, supplier invoices list also, we can enter the transaction. You can go to the supplier invoice list and click on actions. Click on create supplier return. Then it will fill all details, that supplier name, number, and from invoice and item details. Now if you want to change the item quantity, you can change, or else if you are returning full invoice, you can use this method, or else you can use that go to supplier transaction, supplier returns method also you can use. Okay. After completing the transaction, you can save. And here also, when you are entering supplier returns, you can select this from the invoice list. You can select the returning invoice and fill those details. Right, you can enter supplier return transactions. Okay, is it clear? If you want to return goods to supplier, or sometimes there may be practical issues, sometimes you received goods may be damaged or expired. In that case, you need to return those items to the supplier. When you are send goods to the supplier, you can enter those transactions in the system. To enter that transaction, go to suppliers, transactions, supplier returns. Click on add supplier return. Select the supplier. If you have details about that supplier from which invoice you are returning goods, you can select that from invoice. And you can enter that transaction. If you want to change that supplier return, now if you are not returning full amount of items, you can change those items. You can change that line item, or you can change the quantity, and you can save. And if you don't have from which invoices you are returning, or else old items, such as when you are entering that opening balances, those invoice details may not have with you. In that, without selecting an invoice, you can enter the items. If you already entered that supplier invoices, you can select from invoice, or else without selecting the invoice, you can enter that items.
So old items, how do you take the prices?
Sorry?
Old items.
Yeah.
Then how do you rate the value?
Items that price, it will update last cost prices, last purchase price, it will update. Yeah.
It will get up, the credit will go at the rate, the last purchase. Not
last purchase price. Yeah, you can change that. Actually, you can change the prices, or else system will populate that last last purchase price. You can change now for an old items. System does may not have the prices. In that case, you last purchase price. That's depending on the that company policies. Yeah, Mr. Vasanta, is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Right, return. If you want, you can add from here. You can use this message for that why you are returning those information. You can add to the system. Okay. You can enter that supplier returns form, supplier transaction, supplier returns. And click add supplier returns, or else you can go to supplier invoices, supplier transaction, supplier invoices. Select the invoice, click on action.
Inventory
Yeah.
also get reduced?
Sorry?
Inventory also will get reduced?
Yeah, inventory, it will now when after you enter that supplier return.
Inventory also reduced to
Sorry,
goods return note.
Sorry, your that voice is not much. Please, can you ask again?
Yeah, when you put the sales return,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Can you
I think he's asking
repeat the
whether
question, please?
separate credit note is necessary to be created, no?
No,
Within his-
no need that from here it will update that inventory and trade payables.
Right. Okay. So automatically, once the sales return is put, the invoice get value also get reduced what we had to pay to the supplier, and the inventory
Yeah.
also get adjusted.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay, next we will move to supplier payments. After you have invoice supply invoices to the supplier, now you are going to pay to the supplier. Yes, you can go to suppliers, transactions, supplier payments. Okay, click on add supplier payment. Select the supplier. When you select the supplier, it will show the suppliers outstanding. You can select which invoice you are going to pay, and you can select that invoice. After you select the invoice, it will populate that invoice amount to payment amount, or else you can directly enter the payment amount here. Under reference, you can enter any check number or bank transfer reference, and bank account, you can select that you're paying bank account, and description also you can type any description you want, and payment methods, you can select cash, check, credit card, or electronic fund transfer, EFT, and you can process. If you want to print, or if you want to email, you can use this process and email. Okay, I'll repeat it again. Now you want to pay to your supplier. For that, go to supplier, transactions, supplier payments. Click on add supplier payment. Select the supplier. After you select the supplier, it will show that supplier balances and outstanding invoices. You can sort these outstanding invoices by document number, date, or total, or amount due. And if you are going to pay any invoice, you can select that, then that payment amount will be populate to this payment amount. Now if you want to pay few invoices, more than one invoice, you can select that those all invoices, then total amount will display in the payment amount. And also there are sometimes you may pay part payments. That case you can click on this, select the account and enter the part payment in this amount paid. Okay, and enter the reference number, enter check number or bank transaction number under reference, and you can select the bank from bank account. If you want to add any description, you can type here, and you can change, select the payment method from this payment method drop down box. You can select cash, check, credit card. Furthermore, now sometimes your suppliers may give cash discounts. For an example, if you are settled early, you may get discounts. In that case, you can enter the discount amount here. When you are entering the supplier invoice, sometimes your suppliers may give discount for early settlement or any special promotions. They will give discounts. In that case, you can enter those discounts when you are entering the supplier payment. Okay, after completing this one, you can process, or if you want to print a you can print this payment voucher, or else you can email or the payment voucher. After you pressing that print, it will show this bottom. It will show that the invoice date, invoice number, supplier reference and amount. You can print this one. Okay, and sometimes you might not see in your bank accounts. If it is, you can go to the banking, add a bank or credit card. You can enter bank account here. Your bank account details you can enter in new bank account. Okay, we will just go through how to create a bank account when you are doing the banking in detail. Here, enter your bank account name. Now, for an example, if you have two bank accounts in same bank, for an example, Sampath Bank, you have two accounts. In that case, you can use Sampath Bank and account number for account name. And if you have current account or savings accounts, you can add from here, add new category. And default payment method, you can select check, cash. credit card or EFT, and enter bank name. Your account number and branch name. You can create a foreign currency account and local currency. If you want foreign currency, you can select the foreign currency. There are also two options, active and default. Active means it's active, and default means if you tick on default, when you are entering transaction, that account will always display in the screen. Now this company this default account is Sampath rupees. Therefore, when you are entering in transaction, it will show as a default bank account. Okay, I'll repeat how to create bank account. First go to, then click on add a bank or credit card. Enter your bank name, category, and you can select default payment method, cash, check, credit card or EFT, and enter bank name, account number, branch name. If you want to create a foreign bank account, you can by selecting foreign currency, you can create foreign bank account. Now you can create a bank account. Mr. Vasantha, again, you can't hear? How about others? Mr. Aman, can you hear?
Yeah. We can hear, but there are some, I think, due to this internet problem, sometimes there are disturbance,
okay.
but we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, now I think you have created that bank account. Now we will go to again to that supplier payment. From here, now you can add a few transactions, supplier payment to the suppliers. Okay, sometimes you may remember when we are creating the supplier, there's an option that auto allocate payments to oldest invoice. If you are tick on this, when you are entering any transaction, for example, now we will enter new transaction. We will select cash supplier. Shahir, there's a question. If we want to cancel a supplier payment before releasing a check cash, how can we do it? Can we edit Yes, you can edit. I'll show you how to do the transaction. Now we discussed that when you are creating supplier, there's an option allocate auto allocate payments to oldest invoice. Now if you are tick on this, now we will select the supplier. Now I select this cash supplier. The supplier has 4 invoices. Now I'll enter that payment amount. Then system will automatically allocate that payment to oldest invoices. Now it allocated to 48, 49, 50 invoices equal to this payment amount. Okay, I'll show it again. Now when you are creating the supplier, there's an option auto allocate payment to oldest invoice. If you tick on this, if you activate this, when you are entering the payment, no need to you can have options to select the invoice, or else if you want to pay oldest invoices, you can enter the payment amount under payment amount, and system will automatically allocate that payment amount to oldest invoices. Okay, and here this unallocated amount is 0. Now you might pay supplier advances to the supplier. In that case, you might not receive the invoice, or you might not enter that supplier invoice to the system. In that case, you cannot select any invoices. So if you want to pay supplier advances without selecting invoices, you can enter that payment. Then it will not. Now if you don't enter the supplier invoice, or when you are paying supplier advances without allocating to a supplier invoice, you can do the payment. Okay, you can enter the payment amount in the payment amount box, and you can do the payment. Now if you are paying any advance payment, the unallocated amount, now here I entered 400, unallocated amount also 400, because we haven't allocate to any invoice. In addition to the rupee value payments, you can pay you can overseas suppliers, foreign suppliers. From that, when you are selecting a foreign supplier, it will show that foreign supplier currency, and you can enter the, if you are paying from rupee account, you can enter the rupee amount and system will calculate that foreign currency amount. And here, if you want to change the rate, exchange rate, you can change it from here. Okay, you can enter sums from supplier transactions and supplier payments. Click on add supplier payment. Select the supplier. One option is you can enter the payment amount. If you activate that payment for orders invoices, system will automatically allocate the payment to the orders invoices, or else if you want, you can manually allocate that payment. Okay, and under reference you can enter check number or the bank transaction number, and you can select the payment bank account. If you want to add any notes to the payment, you can add that, and you can select the payment method: cash, check, credit card, or EFT, electronic fund transfer. You can print the payment voucher from process and print. If you select detail, it will show invoice wise. If you select print summary, it will show only that payment amount. After you click the payment, the payment voucher will download. You can click and open that voucher and you can print. In addition to that, you can go to supplier invoices list, go to supplier invoice list, and you can enter the payment. Earlier we did that convert a purchase order to invoice. Like that, you can click on actions, select the invoice, and click on and create payment. If you use that method, it will automatically update that supplier and payment amount, and it will allocate that payment to the relevant supplier invoice. Okay, if you want change the amounts, you can change, or you can change the bank accounts and payment method. And you can process or process and print. There are 4 options. Process means it will save the payment. Process and new means it will not take a printout, and it will save this transaction and open a new transaction. And process and print is you can process and print the invoice. Process and email is you can process the transaction and you can email the voucher to the supplier. Now if you click process and new, it will open a new transaction. Okay, there's a new transaction started. Okay. Now there was a question if you want to cancel or change the payment. If you have allocate any payment, you cannot edit. If you want to cancel or change any payment, first you need to know this payment invoice, therefore it cannot be changed. One option is Shahir, I'm answering to your question. If you want to cancel a supplier payment before releasing a check cash, how can we do it? Can we edit? Okay. One option is we need to unallocate that payment, or easily we can go to banking, transaction, banking. From here to, and we can edit from here. If you are an authorized user, you can edit the transaction. If it is in blue color, it's not, it will indicate it's not a saved transaction. If you click on save changes, you can change. Okay, you can change any. If you are an authorized user, you can edit that bank transactions. To edit a transaction, you can go to banking, transaction, banking, go to review transaction. From this date range, select the date range and select the transaction. From here, you can edit your transaction. Okay, is it clear? Any questions about today's lesson? Me login, is it clear? Prasad?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, clear now. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, clear now, but I will do tomorrow and ask any question and I will clarify next class.
Yeah, sorry, your line is not much clear, me login.
I will, any doubt, I will clarify next class.
Yeah, of course. If you have any questions, you can ask questions before the class or after the class, or else you can email your questions.
Okay.
Anyway, we will start the meet session before 15 minutes, and
Yes.
all the class starting at 6:10. So, in that period, you can ask any questions.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Vasant sir, is it clear?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, hope you all have downloaded that .NET, Microsoft.NET, and if you have any questions about that layout designing, we can discuss in next session. If you are not downloaded, you can download from this message. I have uploaded this one. You can download from this chat box. Yeah, okay, then any questions about this supplier transactions, supplier invoices, returns, supplier payments?
Chandra, after we receive the purchase order, if we process the purchase supply invoice, say purchase order is for 10 quantity, and
Okay.
supply invoice we raise for 8 quantities. So balance 2 quantities we need to follow up and purchase it. So from where?
Yeah. Actually, there's no, it will not history. You can check it's overdue. I mean, there's a partial for that purchase order. It will not show as partially. Only from invoice that purchase order history, we can view that there's a balance.
Like at remarks, at the status, it won't show, no? It will show as
invoice. But here you can that under user define, you can add that balance part, and you can link it to the list. I mean that supplier purchase orders grid. You can mention that.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, then we will stop for today. If you have any questions after session or before the session, you can ask. Okay, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.